The whispered tension that's been simmering beneath the shiny surface of Golden State's roster has finally burst into the open, electrifying Dub Nation with a dilemma that cuts to the very core of what it means to be a Warrior in these post-believe times. This is no longer just about draft picks and contracts. It's about a young star's soul clashing with the iron will of a franchise owner who holds the fate of Jonathan Kuminga in his powerful hands. Welcome back to Warriors News Fan Report, where raw truths collide with splash-era passion. Smash that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so your heart never misses a beat. Ever since the onset of free agency, rumors have swirled like a thunderstorm above the Chase Center about Kuminga's uncertain future. A future that once seemed ripe with potential, but has now entered murky waters as the 6'8" forward's desire for a fresh start on a new team became impossible to ignore. Yet, the story taking shape isn't the dream scenario fans crave, but one steeped in negotiation stalemates and unseen power plays where Kuminga's brilliance risks being held hostage not just by a crowded Golden State rotation, where a figure like Jimmy Butler looms large, but by an owner's unwavering conviction and a front office that refuses to surrender the rare talent that has hung in the balance since that 7th overall pick in the 2021 NBA draft showed flashes of star potential. Reports from the likes of ESPN insiders Shams Charania and Anthony Slater paint a portrait of a player frustrated not merely by minutes but by control, specifically Kuminga's reluctance to accept a 2-year Warriors offer that demands sacrificing trade veto rights. A move that communicates a deeper rift, one where Kuminga senses his career has been corralled, stunted under Golden State's wing despite the glowing legacy of the Splash era and the high standards it demands. But here's the under-the-radar bomb no one saw coming. While Sacramento Kings have aggressively pursued Kuminga, reportedly readying a sign-and-trade deal that bundles Malik Monk and a lottery-protected 2023 first-round pick, it turns out the linchpin in this saga is a simple but potent shift removing that pick's protection from 2030 would supposedly greenlight the Warriors to accept the deal. According to NBA insider Evan Sidery, a minor detail loaded with enormous consequences. This moment reveals how much power the Warriors truly wield in this chess match. As owner Joe Lacob's steadfast admiration for Kuminga and his willingness either to keep him or demand real value in return has effectively put the brakes on what many assumed would be a swift departure. Tim Kawakami's insights echo this sentiment. Lacob is a man who can rewrite narratives not with the coach's preferences, but with his own vision. His finger firmly on the pulse of a franchise that weathered dynasty highs and brutal playoff scars, but refuses to bow to external pressures. And while Kuminga's relationship with Steve Kerr oscillates in the shadows, the bond with Lacob remained visible even as they shared moments courtside at a Golden State Valkyries game, signaling that the final verdict might not come from locker room murmurs or social media speculation, but from the owner's desk, where dollars and destiny intertwine. Could this stalemate signal a turning point that either ignites Kuminga's emergence within the Warriors' evolving blueprint or fractures the delicate balance that holds together a team hungry for silverware? After all, this is Dub Nation. We're talking about a community forged in passion, resilience, and loyalty to a franchise that once redefined the game with Curry's three-point revolution and Draymond's fiery leadership. And now, what if Joe Lacob's decision here becomes the fulcrum that determines whether Jonathan Kuminga blossoms into the next true cornerstone of a renewed Warriors dynasty? The kind of player who can carry the torch when Steph Curry finally steps away, or whether he becomes just another high-upside name traded away, lost in the endless shuffle of a loaded and unforgiving Western Conference. Each possible outcome bristles with stakes so high they could change the trajectory of this franchise for the next decade. We're talking about a gamble that could either cement Golden State's ambitions to reload and rise again, or expose the first real fracture in a legacy painstakingly built over years of sweat, heartbreak, and the kind of triumph that only comes when talent meets timing. Because let's be real, this isn't just a contract decision. This is a statement about vision, about what the organization truly believes it takes to win again in an era where the margin between contender and pretender is razor-thin dot. And if Kuminga stays, the question becomes, will he stay empowered? Will he have the freedom to grow into the explosive, two-way force his flashes have promised, the kind of slashing switchable nightmare that keeps opposing coaches awake at night? Or will the weight of franchise control, of knowing that his future is still tethered to the whims of the front office, stunt that growth? If he's traded, what's the return? Are we looking at a short-term boost in Vector at the expense of a long-term star? Or will we watch him break out somewhere else, forcing Dub Nation to live with the agony of what could have been? This is where the stakes turn personal, because for fans, it's never just about the X's and O's or the salary cap math. It's about the emotional bond, the investment of years spent believing in someone's potential. Lacob's decision echoes beyond the court. It sends a message to the locker room, to Steph, Draymond, Clay, and every role player grinding through the season. If the front office chooses control over trust, it might tighten the machine in the short term, but what does it do to morale? Does it plant seeds of doubt about whether the organization still knows how to cultivate stars instead of acquiring them ready-made? And if they do give Kuminga that real trust, it could light a fire that changes the entire chemistry of this team, reawakening that fearless, us against the world mentality we saw in 2015. We've seen this story before in the NBA. A young player, right on the edge of becoming a franchise-altering star, finds himself at the crossroads. Sometimes the team bets big and it pays off. Think Kawhi in San Antonio, Giannis in Milwaukee. Sometimes they hesitate. The relationship cools, and years later, the franchise is still trying to fill the hole left behind. Think Harden in Oklahoma City, Siakam in Toronto. Where will Kuminga's chapter land in that history? Will it be celebrated as the moment Golden State doubled down on their future, or cursed as the misstep that sent them tumbling into mediocrity? As a lifelong Dub Nation believer, my pulse is pounding just writing this, torn between the explosive potential of Kuminga's rise and the cold, relentless grip of franchise control that could either prove visionary or devastating. I can't help but picture the two diverging paths. One, where Kuminga's jersey hangs in the rafters next to Curry's and Thompson's, the last great warrior of an era that refused to fade quietly. And another, where his highlights play on some other team's jumbotron while we wonder how we ever let it happen. This isn't just a decision, it's a litmus test for whether the Warriors still have the courage to build to believe, to take risks that honor the identity they fought so hard to create. So I'll ask you, because this is the part where Dub Nation's voice matters. Do you see this as the ignition point for our next title run, the spark that sets off one last glorious blaze of championship basketball? Or is it the hairline crack in our armor, the one that starts small but eventually splits our legacy wide open, leaving us with nothing but memories and questions? Drop your unfiltered takes in the comments. I'll be right there, heart in hand, riding this out with you every step of the way. If you felt a jolt like a live wire just snapped through your veins reading all that, don't just sit there, blast your truth down in the comments like this is the last buzzer beater of the season, because, honestly, this isn't just another roster update or some front office whisper on a slow news day. This is the defining moment that could reshape the Golden State Warriors narrative for the next decade. And nothing about it smells like the smooth, precision-engineered championship machine we've worshipped for years. The tension choking the Chase Center. All right now is not from a simple contract dispute or a typical trade rumor. It's a full-blown ideological war disguised as business. A clash so deep that it threatens the soul of the team and the identity of a player who many believe is supposed to be the heir apparent to the Splash Dynasty throne. Jonathan Kuminga's frustration with the Warriors front office doesn't come from nowhere. It's a raw, burning impatience born from sharing the floor with stars like Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson, but feeling boxed in, suffocated by a system that, for all its brilliance, often demands bending, not breaking, loyalty. A 2-year deal with the caveat of forfeiting trade veto power? That's not a mere contractual footnote. It's a straight-up power play. A message from Joe Lacob's empire telling Kuminga that his future isn't entirely his own to carve. The Kings' offer with Malik Monk and a protected first-rounder looked like a lifeline, a chance to escape that cage and emerge as the leader of a new squad. But the devil's in the detail, isn't it? That pick protection clause tightening like a noose around potential flexibility means the Warriors are playing a long game, keeping the reins on a player who so far has glimmers of star power wrapped in unpredictable flashes that make you want to scream in delight and frustration all at once. The power dynamic unfolding here pits Kuminga's youthful hunger against Lacob's veteran certainty, and suddenly, we're not just talking basketball IQ or athletic potential. We're witnessing a battle of wills, of ownership versus opportunity, and maybe even secretly, a test of loyalty and belief. What does Steve Kerr think? Well, you know the man a quiet general with a steel spine but a heart calibrated to the chemistry of his team. Reports suggest the coach has weathered these choppy waters by keeping conversations close to the vest, avoiding the maelstrom out in public. But how long can that hold? Because the locker room is a pressure cooker now, with whispers about Kuminga feeling overlooked beside Wiggins' evolving role, Moody's fresh fire, and the still crowning presence of Curry as the franchise's one true immortal each of. These players encapsulates a different vision of the team's future. But Kuminga's storyline could easily become the litmus test of whether this reload becomes a renaissance or the start of fracture lines tearing through a dynasty. Imagine for a second the same Warriors who rewrote the NBA's playbook with their deadly three-point barrage and unselfish, relentless defense now grappling with an internal fracture that threatens everything that made us us. Think about the contrast last decade. We were cruising from 5 straight finals appearances, building legends with every splash, every defensive stop, every sleepless night under Kerr's meticulous watch. Now, suddenly, here we are wrestling over a young talent whose ceiling could redefine the next era or disappear in the shuffle of a Western Conference that's deadlier than ever. And let's not ignore how this moment ripples beyond the hardwood. Joe Lacob isn't just a businessman. He's the steely architect of a legacy who views Kuminga as a wild card, maybe the wild card. The man who bought the Warriors' shipping container dreams and turned them into championship parades isn't about to lose control without a war. And sources hint that his decision-making isn't swayed by public sentiment or social media outrage, but a calculated belief that Kuminga's star will rise under his conditions or not at all. So what if this stalemate stretches on? What if by pushing back, Lacob solidifies a foundation too rigid for the new NBA where flexibility and player empowerment reigns supreme? Or conversely, what if this is the moment when Kuminga, tinged by grit and impatience, breaks free, forcing a trade that could leave Dub Nation wondering if we held on too long to the echoes of a dynasty long past, rather than the thunder of one about to break? The layers get thicker when you think about the interplay between Steph Curry's legacy and Kuminga's hunger. Curry, still the heart and soul of the team, the man who revolutionized the game, and whose shadow will stretch over the Bay for generations, faces the complex task of supporting a young star who, by necessity, will have to wrestle with the towering presence of a living legend. It's a delicate balance. How do you groom a successor while maintaining a competitive edge? How do you elevate Kuminga without fracturing the carefully polished chemistry Kerr has engineered? And what does it mean when a young player begins to push back so violently against the franchise's set choreography? Every Warriors fan knows that under Lacob and Kerr, talent was molded into a collective force, a clan of Splash Brothers, defensive anchors, and sharpshooting phenoms unified under a championship quest. But Kuminga's saga might signal a different type of revolution, one that demands personal agency, respect, and perhaps a break from tradition. I'm thinking right now about the delicate moments Kuminga and Lacob courtside at that Warrior Valkyrie's game, a scene loaded with unspoken tension, but also a glimpse of mutual respect. What if this meeting wasn't a truce but a final warning? What if Lacob's hands on the reins is his last stand against a shifting basketball culture where players no longer acquiesce but demand control? Every rumor, every report, every insider. Whisper points to a maelstrom where the Warriors, fate hangs by a thread, not just a player's negotiation or an owner's ego trip, but a collision of legacies and futures. And remember, this isn't just about the present season. It's about whether Golden State's blueprint for sustained greatness survives in a league that has evolved while our core remains that glorious blend of older pedigree and emerging promise. Could Kuminga's departure fracture the solidarity that powered the dynasty's glory? Or could it fuel a bold recalibration where every piece Moody's toughness, Wiggins' versatility, and Kuminga's untapped explosion catalyzes a new Warriors era, fiercer and more flexible? As someone who bled blue and gold through every heartbreak, those finals losses that cut deep, the injuries that nearly snuffed the flames, and the parades that made time stand still, I can feel it in my bones that the ground beneath the Chase Center is shifting. Something monumental is brewing, something that will test the franchise's ideals, its leadership, and the very spirit of what it means to be a Warrior in 2024. And no matter what happens, no matter where Kuminga lands or how Lacob's vision unfolds, Dub Nation will be watching heart and throat, screaming and praying, because this moment, this tension, this fight, this crossroads is about more than basketball. It's about identity, legacy, and the unyielding fire that drives us to believe that no storm lasts forever, that even the deepest fractures can birth new champions. So now I want you right now, in this moment, raw and real, to drop your hottest take below. Tell me if you think Lacob's holding true to a vision worth the cost, or if Kuminga's pushback signals the next inevitable chapter in player empowerment. No filter, no fear. I'll be right there, parsing the passion and the pain of every comment, because this story is ours to tell, and we're not just watching history. We're living it.